Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of Housing Solutions of New York, where we are at the intersection of housing and human services, we thank you for joining us for this special Five Borough Tour edition of Going Beyond the Boroughs for the very first time. And today we'll be bringing policy and lived experience in one space. Too often, homelessness is discussed in just a statistic alone, only through headlines at times. But the real solution happens when practitioners share what's really happening day to day, policymakers understand operational realities, and all of us align around actionable solutions. Now, to do so, we really have to understand the complexities of homelessness and hunger. So, over the past year, we've brought together leaders across New York City to discuss this very topic. And today, we're expanding that conversation to Long Island because these challenges don't stop at a county or city lines. Our goal isn't just to talk about the issues, we're here to share ideas, learn from one another, and explore stronger partnerships that can create stronger communities. Homelessness is not simply about housing loss, it's often the result of layered instability. This comes from rent burden and evictions, job loss or underemployment, domestic violence, mental health challenges, food insecurities, and quite frankly, hunger is often the first visible sign of housing instability. Families would rather skip meals long before they lose housing. And that's why we have to treat housing and food insecurity as a unified strategy. But to guide the conversation, I really want to ground us with a little bit of data. When we talk about the data, I really want to speak to, let's look at the numbers that we see. 4,500 people across Nassau and Suffolk counties are experiencing homelessness. Nearly one third of them are children. At that very same time, approximately 240,000 Long Islanders face food insecurity. So if we go beyond the statistic, behind that is a person, a family, a child, or even a senior navigating incredible difficult circumstances. These numbers remind us why today's conversation matters, why collaboration across sectors has never been more important. And so, as we speak to that, I want to speak a little bit about the realities that we face. Homelessness is actually a crisis. I'm not exaggerating this point. It's not simply someone losing a place to live, and it's also often the result of a series of challenges that compound over time. So when we speak about it, we speak from a cultural systemic issue, not an individual failure. The reality is, no one wakes up and chooses instability. Instability happens when systems fail to absorb shock, the shock of a medical emergency, a job loss, domestic violence, sudden rent increases. When costs rise faster than incomes, that shock can quickly spiral, and that's what we call the cycle of instability. So we can go from a missed payment all the way to eviction. Eviction turns into a shelter entry, and shelter entry disrupts employment as well as schooling. The system can be reactive instead of preventative. And so, what we want to do is end homelessness and not just manage it. At Housing Solutions of New York, you would hear our CEO often say that housing is like air and water. We don't question whether people deserve clean air or clean water. That's a basic human right. And so, housing should be viewed in the very same way. So, when people have stable housing, they have the foundation to pursue employment, care for their health, support their families, and build a better future. To speak to that, we're going to have a opening video remark by Assembly Member O'Farrell.
In Assembly District 11, from Wyandanch to Wheatley Heights to Emeryville, Copeg, Lindenhurst, and the surrounding areas in our communities, we know that housing insecurity is not an abstract issue. It's affecting all of our neighbors every single day. So here on Long Island, homelessness can be often hidden. It could be a family living in a motel, a senior struggling to keep up with rising housing costs, or just a working parent choosing between paying rent, buying groceries, or other basic necessities. As your state representative, I carry those realities with me to Albany. I'm constantly working on ways to strengthen investments in affordable housing, workforce housing, address food insecurity and food deserts, and also prevent families from falling into homelessness. I also want to recognize the incredible local organizations in the community that I've partnered with who work alongside me in my office. They are on the front lines every single day, helping us connect residents to food housing assistance, healthcare, and emergency resources. They continue to do everything within their ability to ensure neighbors are not left behind. Our responsibility at the state level is to make sure that these organizations have the resources and support the need to continue that work. Because whether you live in Assembly District 11 or anywhere across New York State, every family deserves a safe home, food on the table, and opportunity to build a stable future. So let's do the best that we can, represent our constituents in all New York State. Thank you.
And we thank Assemblymember O'Farrell for those opening remarks. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's discussion, Dr. Xellex Rivera, who is our Chief Program Officer here at Housing Solutions of New York. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. When we talk about homelessness and housing instability, the conversation often centers itself around the New York City five boroughs. But the reality is that the need doesn't stop within the city limits. Long Island is experiencing rising housing costs, increasing rates of homelessness, and growing numbers of families, veterans, and older adults struggling to remain housed. That's why today's conversation is so important. Building bridges means extending collaboration beyond geographical boundaries, and restoring dignity means ensuring that every community, whether in New York City or on Long Island, has access to equitable housing solutions. The question is no longer why Long Island, the question is why not? And the answer is the time is now. It is my pleasure to introduce our panelists for today, who I would love to join me on screen as we dive into this very deep and needed conversation. Good afternoon. All right. So we're going to go around and I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your organization, and the most important thing that you want the audience to know about what you do. I will call you by name so we can have some organization. I can go through my Brady Bunch boxes on my screen. All right. So I'm going to start with Sal, and then roll over to William, and then go to Pilar to get started.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sal Filosa. I'm a legislative aide to Assemblywoman Rebecca Cassay, who is very upset that she could not be here herself. I will be making closing remarks that were prepared by the Assemblywoman, and I'm here to learn and take notes and share them with Rebecca after this. Our office, the office of Assemblywoman Cassay, represents Assembly District 4 here on Long Island, which represents about 130,000 people. And she believes that the solutions to this must be comprehensive and sort of require all hands on deck. So that is the number one thing. And we are open. We'd love for you to reach out if you have any needs or issues that need to be addressed. We are here for you. Look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the conversation, William.
Hi, I'm William Whitaker. I am a trustee in the Incorporated Village of Hempstead, where Wellen Hobbs Jr. is mayor. I am a new trustee, elected in March and sworn in April. And so it's been a little over a year. And as a trustee in the village, to make it short, one of the most important parts of this is that I'm an advocate for the people. In all areas, I'm an advocate for the people. And one of the areas that I deal with, that I have been assigned to, is housing. And those are the people that live in, the Hempstead housing, and seniors and disabled. And I'm also, I'm an advocate for people just all the way around. And this homelessness is very, very, very important to me. And I'll talk more about it as we get into the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Thank you for joining the conversation. Pilar, and then we'll go to Gregory.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pilar Moya Mancera. I'm the Executive Director of a tiny but mighty housing counseling agency called Housing Help, Inc. We've been providing services to the Long Island community for over 60 years. We have offices in the East End in Riverhead, also in Western Suffolk, in Central Islip, in East Northport, and recently we opened an office in Hempstead. I am very happy to be here today. Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you so much for allowing us to have this discussion that it's extremely important, especially on Long Island today.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining, Gregory.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep, sure
Okay,
can.
sorry, I had an audio issue there. Gregory May, I'm the Director of Government and Community Relations for Island Harvest Food Bank. We service Nassau and Suffolk counties here on Long Island. Distributed more than 21 million pounds of food across Long Island during our last fiscal year. And I am an advocate for our neighbors in need on Long Island, in Albany, and in Washington, D.C.
Awesome. I'm going to pass it to Yolanda and then bring it home to Seth.
Good morning, everybody. Yolanda Robano-Gross, Chief Executive Officer for Options for Community Living. Options has been serving Long Island. It will be 45 years this coming February. Housing, case management, care coordination, financial assistance for individuals with chronic physical and mental illnesses. Our corporate office is out here in Ronkonkoma. We also have an office in Hempstead. We serve about 2,200-ish Long Islanders a year, adults and children across the island.
Awesome. Thanks for joining the conversation. Seth?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining. This is actually pretty wonderful that we're all able to get together. Seth Muraskin, so I'm CEO here of Housing Solutions of New York, and as Dr. Rivera said, that issues of unhoused and issues of food insecurity is not just limited, obviously, to New York City. Um, I've been at the helm here at HSNY close to 5 years, and we've done a very good job in terms of making sure the wraparound services and the support services that we know what has to happen. We'll talk hopefully a little bit later about the expanded food pantry that we just launched about a month and a half ago, and in terms of what we're looking to do. Not that we're going to do anything that can impact what Greg and Island Harvest are doing right now, but we want to at least bring some things out to the island. And I happen to be a Long Island. Born and bred, born in Nassau, stayed in Nassau, lived in Suffolk the last 33 years. So I do have an understanding of the seen and unseen population of the unhoused in Long Island. And though it's similar in terms of backgrounds and things that folks of our clients in New York City, in terms of being, anything can happen. It could be any one of us. I do have a little bit of my insight in bringing what we've done in New York City, and hopefully we can do similar things out in the island when we hopefully expand out to Nassau and Suffolk. So thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you for joining the conversation. So I want to toss this to everybody, but Trustee Whitaker, I'm going to start with you, and then we're going to pass it to everybody else. Right? So homelessness often looks different on Long Island than it does in New York City, right? New York City is always the media projected version of what a homeless individual looks like. However, from your perspective, and again, this is for everybody, from your perspective, what makes the Long Island experience unique?
Thank you for this question, and I'm so glad that you asked me this question, because on last night, and I'll make it quick. On last night, I was kind of pondering over in my mind about the uniqueness, and I know that word uniqueness for homelessness, it just seemed like it doesn't go together. But let me tell you why. Because when you say Long Island, there's a uniqueness and a picture of the big house, the white picket fence, the green grass, and all of that. So I title my remark by saying the uniqueness of Long Island homelessness, I title it as Out of Sight. Now watch real quickly, because unlike the metropolitan areas where homelessness is so visible, it's not always as visible on Long Island because it's tucked away. It's tucked away behind strip malls. It's tucked away in cars. It's tucked away in motel parking lots. Not like the city blocks in the metropolitan area. And also, there are working homeless. People who are working and homeless because they can't pay rent. They can't, provide food. So I would entitle it in this uniqueness is because it's out of sight.
Thank you for that. I don't know if anybody else wants to pick up that question.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Um, 100%, million percent correct. Our unhoused population are not out there as much as what you guys see in the city. You know, we can go through a hole in a fence literally and end up in an encampment that looks like something out of your, 1920s history lesson. But they're there. And we have unique problems on Long Island in terms of transportation is not accessible, right? So a lot of these individuals trying to get back on their feet and go back to work as best as they can. We don't have the accessibility to trains and buses like the city has. We do have it, but not nearly as accessible. And the further out into Suffolk County we get, the less accessible it is. We also have an inventory issue. Long Island is really expensive, and I have clients that are living in their cars and yet getting to work every day. They're managing day to day, but there's that first month's, last month's security that you have to get under you before you can get an apartment. And, what's deemed as fair market really isn't fair to most people. So to get that under you, we also have lesser inventory than we used to have. Post Sandy, which I know was a long time ago, but a lot of people who lost their homes became renters, and a lot of them stayed that way. So we also don't have the inventory. So even if someone could gather enough bandwidth to get themselves into an apartment, we just don't have the inventory needed. So we are a little more unique or different than the city with some of those factors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Yolanda, to that point, I mean, the contrast in terms of my organization, obviously, we have access to buses and access to subways, so you can see more and it's more visible.
Yeah.
But to the point, and for someone who's lived in Long Island all my life, I mean, transportation or the lack of transportation or direct transportation, if you're living somewhere and you need to work somewhere and you have to then go someplace else, it could literally take you hours and hours to get you from one location to the other. And if you're working somewhere, they're not necessarily going to be, very sympathetic if you can't get to the workplace on time. So again, you have the ability where out in the island, we know it's there and it's unfortunate, but you're not seeing it. And sometimes because you're not seeing it 100%, you're thinking doesn't it actually exist, but it 100% does.
Yeah, and throw in the mix of, like, I'm a single mom, right? Throw in the mix of now, I have to travel all that way to get to a job, but someone's got to get my kid off the bus and
Right.
manage that other dynamic of the family. So, you know, what do you give? What's the greater good? How do you make it all work without supports in place?
Right. And it's
100%.
tied to a mixture. It's tied to a mixture of things. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Pilar.
Yes, so I truly feel that homelessness on Long Island really cannot be separated from our history of racial and economic housing segregation. You know, for generations, restrictive zoning laws have really limited the creation of multifamily housing, right? And other local land use decisions have shaped who has access to certain neighborhoods and who does not. We often say here on Long Island, your zip code really can influence your quality of life, your education, your access to healthcare and transportation, economic opportunity, and even how long you may live, right? Here on Long Island, we have concentrated poverty in a limited number of communities, many of which are predominantly Black and Brown communities. And those communities often carry a disproportionate share of Long Island's affordable housing needs, while also facing overcrowded schools and greater demands on local services. So on these communities, our kids, they're experiencing overcrowding in schools, while the rest of Long Island is experiencing the exact opposite, right? A total reduction of the school population, right? So I really truly feel that Long Island cannot address homelessness without confronting segregation and local housing policies that continue to determine, which families or individuals have access to a stable housing and who have access to opportunity. Thank you.
I think that was a good one. I'm going to throw a question at Gregory. that ties all of that in together. But I'm gonna come back to the local housing policies. So Gregory, what's the biggest myth, or what are some of the misconceptions around homelessness and hunger that you would like to address, and how they intersect? Like, what is the connection between on Long Island between how, food instability and housing instability?
Sure, and I want to echo what Trustee Whitaker was saying before. There's a conception on Long Island, or a conception outside of Long Island, that Long Island is the Gold Coast mansions and it's the Hamptons, right? Food insecurity and homelessness exist across Long Island from Montauk to the Queens border, and we at Island Harvest are distributing food to every zip code on Long Island. So just to want to dispel for folks the idea that Long Island is different from other places. I mean, it is. We're from Long Island. We do think we're special, but it is the same in that we have the same concerns and challenges that exist across the state and across the country.
Awesome. So, I mean, I do agree with all of you, right? I am a most recent resident of Long Island. However, I am 100% Bronx bred. So I think I have the best of both worlds, born and raised in the Bronx, lived my whole life. But like Trustee Whitaker said, when I decided to go into home ownership, Long Island was ideal for me in trying to relocate. So I want to, again, toss this to the whole panel. There is a big misconception, like everybody was saying, around Long Island must only be homeowners, right? And being a renter is something that's not really talked about, right, in Long Island, or maybe they're not seen either. So can everybody talk about how it is being a renter in Long Island and the home ownership component, how that impacts possibly those who are unhoused?
I think that people. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No. Trustee,
I think that
you go.
I think also here we have another misconception. Long Island homeowner. Do you know how many people are renting? People are in these houses with 4 and 5 bedrooms, and they are renters. However, you would never know they're renters unless you were the owner of the home, because they come in and out. They treat it. Some of them treat it just like it's their own home. Then you have those other renters that actually treats it like, well, we're just renters. So, we're going to move out. We have a year lease or 2-year lease. So we're going to leave this house broken down. And so it's such a misconception. I go back to the white picket fence, the green grass, and there's so many renters. And that's where the homelessness really it comes in, because they're renting, they're paying, listen, Long Island Railroad is very expensive. They got to pay to get to work. They got to pay. And homelessness is not just people living on the street. You're living inside of a box place, and you're experiencing like the things just like somebody's just living outside, except you turn on your water and it runs from a faucet. Someone outside don't turn on the water, they get it from a fire hydrant.
Yeah, and to that point, in terms of renters, you're absolutely right. I mean, in terms of vulnerable populations, you've got the young and you've got senior citizens. If the average rent at Long Island, a small unit is $3,000 a month plus, it's almost impossible to do that. You've got a boomerang generation where you have kids coming back back to their parents because they can't afford to do that, and you've got seniors who, on a very fixed budget and a very fixed income, can't maintain sort of where you are. And if you're looking at it macroly, looking at the AMI, what the average medium income is for the area, it's incredibly expensive. And to your point, it's not the white picket fence, it's not the house that's there, though that seems to be where a lot of the focus and concentration is. And Pilar, you said something also earlier, which makes lots of sense. In Nassau and Suffolk, zoning is used as a sword and not a shield. Where in the city, we can work with a little bit with the electeds and try to make sure we're trying to solve the problem. But to the point, concentrated areas in Long Island people have used zoning for that very, very purpose. And that stigma is very, very difficult to overcome.
Very.
Agreed. I'm going to toss this question to Yolanda. So what housing trends are you currently seeing today that concerns you the most on the island? I'll say it again. What housing trends are you seeing today that concern you the most? It looks like Trustee Whitaker wants that question too. You have to wait, Trustee Whitaker.
I'm waiting.
Everybody has to know the difference. We've seen a lot of buildups around the train stations, right? I live in the Five Towns, so there's a beautiful building in Lynbrook. I work in Ronkonkoma, there's a beautiful building at the Ronkonkoma train station. You know, it's geared towards affordable, right, housing, and it's supposed to be geared towards these people moving into the city, and we want to build up the neighborhood. That's very different from low income, right? Even the kids, and I say kids because my daughter is 24, right? So even that age group, for this to be affordable to them, it's really not. So my concern, and I think it's beautiful, I'm happy we're building. My concern is more, where's the sustainability for Long Island? How are we going to keep that next generation here? What are we doing to work towards having people who are our workforce stay and become part of the next generation of Long Island? I don't think there is enough truly affordable housing for people trying to get their feet under them. I can tell you that I am sitting on a grant to build a 50-unit, for lack of a better term, efficiency type apartment, an SRO, and to find a piece of property, and the rule is it needs to be in Suffolk County. That's it. And to find either a piece of property that I can rejigger or a piece of land that I can build up for when the money's sitting there, and to not be able to find that, that's sad, because that's 50 individuals that could have a roof over their heads. So there are those trends. There's also still, and I have to say it, working in my world, it's 2026 America. NIMBYism should be gone, right? I get that you think what we do is great, but if it's great here, and in my town, and in your town, and in your town. So we get a lot of response from different communities of, we think what you're doing is great, but please don't do it here.
Right, but it's great over there, not great
Right,
over
Right.
here.
and, you know, when you think of things like, you know, mental health is one of our major populations that we work with, right? HIV, the unhoused, you know, these people are here. 1 in 4 people have a mental health diagnosis. So, you know, just go around this circle, right? Stand in front of your house and count houses. Somebody's got a mental health diagnosis on your block. It may even be in your house. So we need to open up our minds a little to that. We're in 2026. We need to go with that.
Yeah. Trustee Whitaker, you were
Real
you was
quick,
like double dutching into that. You wanted to get into that too.
Dr.
So
X, really? Dr. X, really? I, I wanted, and that was good, Yolanda. Now, I want to deal with trend in a different way from what
okay.
I see and what I see in Hempstead. And the way I want to really deal with trend is I want to take it in a different direction. One of the most popular styles that I'm seeing now, and it is, and I'm saying exactly on this lane where I live, is I purchased the home. I'm not going to live in the home. It has 3 bedrooms. I bring in a contractor, and it becomes 8 bedrooms. Okay, do you see where I'm going? 8 bedrooms, and you have an influx of people in and out. I've watched at the end of where I live a house. It had to be maybe 20, and this is a quiet block. It has to be more than 20. I've watched mattresses go in and out at night, stoves. It's a trend where you buy the house, you know you're not going to live in the house, and now the house becomes sectional. And these people care nothing about it. So it brings down the cost of living with all the other houses where that's not happening. It has become a fashion, it has become a culture, and it's and that the habits of these people are totally different from people who are actually home owners. They don't even consider themselves renters. I don't know what they consider themselves by the way that they live. So I just kind of wanted to just share that trend that I see.
Interesting trend. Pilar, you want to add to it?
Yes, so as to the trends, I think it's important to know that here on Long Island, if we were to look at some of the data, like the utilization rate of the housing choice vouchers, also known as Section 8, there are parts of Suffolk County, right, where only 30% of those vouchers are being utilized. That is ridiculous. like sometimes I hear saying, oh, we need more funding, we need more vouchers. Long Island doesn't need more vouchers. Long Island needs more housing. We have clients that are losing their vouchers because they cannot find legal housing, right? So, and also another piece of data that is important is that the majority of tenants on Long Island are house burden. In other words, they pay over 30% of their gross income towards housing. In reality, it's really like over 50% of their gross income towards rent. And that creates, right, this illegal housing, right, which was mentioned by William before. And, Housing Help has been working with pretty much every single township to try to ease their zoning laws when it comes to creating accessory dwelling units, accessory apartments, right? So that we can create more legal housing, right? And hopefully prevent this illegal housing that is very unsafe for everyone. But unfortunately, this illegal housing is happening, right? And in some townships, there is a trend of, blaming the tenant. It's not the tenants, it's really the owner. And we are not making these owners of these properties accountable, right? From renting out, like it was said before, a house to many, many, many people, which is unsafe. Thank you.
I agree with you. I'm gonna move us a little bit into, a lot of us here are familiar with, like wraparound services, and the intersection between the needs that our clients may need in shelter. So for example, Housing Solutions of New York runs a food pantry that is based in the Bronx. However, it has expanded and it goes to all five boroughs, because one of the things that we looked at is that food insecurity is directly correlated to the ability to sustain an independent housing, right? Do everybody remember like when eggs was $10, and sometimes you go to the grocery store still and you're like, why is groceries and McDonald's the exact same amount of money? That used to be drastically different. So I'm gonna pass it to Gregory, and then again, anybody could take this question, but housing instability and food instability go hand in hand. So how are you seeing these issues intersect? And then everybody can take it from there.
So, we see them intersect in a number of different ways. I think the saying is, the rent or the mortgage eats first, right? So when families are planning their budgets, the first thing that the money is going to. And then with rising food costs, there's just less food available, to take care of themselves and their families. Talking about some of the solutions, though, we're part of the Medicaid 1115 waiver, which, for the audience watching, is a pilot program from the federal and state governments that allow us to take some innovative steps to address the intersection of food insecurity, homelessness, and other factors that can impact somebody on Medicaid. So we have a screening tool. Somebody who's on Medicaid who qualifies for enhanced services. We, Island Harvest, can provide them with additional food resources throughout the month. If we know that they are facing housing, insecurity or housing loss, we can then seamlessly refer them to other organizations across Long Island who can help provide them for housing. So we know food insecurity and housing costs are related, and we know that there are potential solutions out there to address and mitigate some of these concerns for folks.
And to Greg's point, awareness of, Dr. Rivera mentioned that we've expanded our food pantry into all five boroughs. One of the things that we do, it makes our pantry a bit unique, is we not only have case management services on site, but also nutritional services. So we completely understand that the cost of food and the cost of living, and it's all the intersection is there. But what we're trying to do is the clients that we have coming in, we're trying to show and demonstrate what you can do and how you can cook, and not only that you can afford it based upon what you need to do to feed your family, but that the nutrition is not missing there. So if you have children, like Long Island has hundreds of thousands, 300,000 people that are experiencing food insecurity, and many of them are children. If you're able to feed and able to provide the nutrition that you have to make sure that where people are growing as part of housing and as part of living, essentially, to the point we don't want a decision to be made, well, either rent or food or something else. If you're going to be be fed, we want to make sure that what you're eating, it makes the most sense and is giving you in terms of nutritional value. And that sometimes gets lost in it, because to the point of McDonald's being just as expensive or inexpensive as going to the store now. But there are ways you can eat better, and there are ways you can utilize those services and make sure that it expands the entire family and it impacts from a long term, especially from a health point of view. It all intersects.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And we have nutritionists on staff here at Island Harvest. A number of years ago, we brought in a nutritionist to review the kinds of foods that we were sourcing to ensure that what we were providing to our communities were healthy and nutritious. As an example, this was many years ago. We used to receive a lot of food donations from Coca-Cola. And that's something that's people want, they enjoy. It has calories. It's there, but it does not provide the nutrition that our communities need. So we made the intentional step to reduce and eliminate the amount of soda that we were accepting and then distributing out to communities. We want to ensure that the food that is going into Long Island is healthy and nutritious, just like you're saying.
And remember, there's a direct link between housing and the food, in that if I don't have a place to live, even if I have the wherewithal to get the food, where am I going with the food?
Right.
So what's happening is that we now have a group, a generation of people, because they're living wherever they are, on the street, in their car, they're couch surfing, whatever the case may be. I need to kind of grab and go because I don't have the wherewithal to store it or to cook it. And now I'm going through my benefits that much quicker because it is that much more expensive. And I'm not healthy, and I'm not teaching the next generation the new thing. It's just this crazy domino effect that keeps happening.
Right.
Absolutely. The other part, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
The other part about this is that I'm going to add to it is that not just food insecurity, but then there's also opportunities to employment that is a problem, right? Minimum wage. There's also the lack of transportation. One of you did highlight that some areas in Long Island are transportation deserts or food deserts. Healthcare, access to healthcare is also an issue. So, Trustee Whitaker, just putting all of it now in the melting pot, what are your thoughts on how can families, renters, or whoever be stable if all of these factors are impacted way before you even pay a rent?
It's very difficult, and that's just, and that's really it in a nutshell. It's just very difficult. It's difficult. It's frustrating, and what I was going to say is that if somebody's if they're in a shelter, say they're in a shelter, and you do get quality food, they don't want to bring it back to the shelter, because you close your eyes, your Oreos are gone. I'm just saying, you close your eyes, your real Frosted Flakes are gone. Neighbor. So you get good things. There's so many there's just so many components, and it just brings us, it brings us into, all of the concerns. There's so many concerns with the whole homelessness situation. I'll just close it there.
So let's bring it to the next question. Thank you for that, Trustee. Today's theme of the discussion was building bridges, restoring dignity, right? Major part. Everybody here is pouring dignity back into people who are probably at their lowest. They don't really want to ask, but now they're at the point of asking. So what partnerships have you made that give the greatest impact to your work? What is the visions that you have for your organization that you think would give the biggest impact?
So I've joined. I've been able to go to places here in the incorporated village of Hempstead. I'm a trustee. I just show up. I try to show up even if I can't stay. And if we're giving away, if I go to a place where they're giving away food and giving away things, I really try to make people feel as if they are in the supermarket and they are using their own money. Make people I already know that you're here because most of you are here because you need this. And I think the worst thing that we can do is treat people in a way to say, oh, well, you need this. The way we handle them. So, give it, pack it nice. Give it to them nice. Make them feel and say, how you doing? Oh, like turkeys, like when they're giving out turkeys. And I'll close it with this. it was funny. We were giving out turkeys at Kennedy Park, and we had two different brands. We had Butterball and we had Genie or something. And the people, I don't want Genie, I want Butterball. I said to the lady, I said, do you know how to cook a turkey? She said, yeah. I said, for real, for real? I said, if you really know how to cook a turkey, you can take this Gene turkey and make it taste like a Butterball turkey. She was like, give me the Gene turkey. I don't want the Butterball. And I said, I don't want you to give me any. I want you to feed your family. I said, can you make stuff? And you got to make people, don't make people feel like, it's a handout. I'm already here. So I just think that it's important that when you do it, that you do it with love and you do it with compassion.
That's a good one. Anybody else want to add to that?
I'd love to add to that. I think, one of the challenges that we're experiencing in the food insecurity space, the emergency food space, is why are we seeing such an incredible rise in need, right? So in 2019, Island Harvest distributed about 9.8 million pounds of food. That's 2019. Last year, last fiscal year I mentioned, we distributed more than about 22 million pounds of food. So we more than doubled over the course of 5 years. Why is that? And I do think, and I don't have evidence yet, we're looking, that the pandemic is really what became the great equalizer, that so many folks needed assistance, that we really were all in it together, so that people realized that there is no shame in asking for help, that when you need it, you can come to a place like Island Harvest and you can get food for yourself and your family, and there is no shame in that. And I think when people really experienced that and saw that sort of paradoxically made the need increase, because I think people were more comfortable saying to themselves, hey, I need this, let me go get that help that I need and that I deserve. So that's my operating theory right now, is that the pandemic really sort of showed us all, each other, and it's a silly way to put it, but we could see the need in each other and the value in each other, and to take care of ourselves and our neighbors.
Dr. X, you asked about partnership. I think that's something that's essential for everyone to hear and for us to know. So Dr. Larry Grubler, I love at TSI, and Larry's famous quote is always that we are never competitors, we are always colleagues, because unfortunately in this world there's way too much business to go around. And I think it's important. I think Long Island is a big place geographically. I know who my people are on Long Island, who I can call if I need next. I know when to call Randy, because I need food over at Island Harvest. She knows when to call me, because someone that came in for food needs housing. I know if there's a veteran, I get on the phone to Frank at Beacon House. We know who our people are, and it's the only way we can manage such a large issue is that we communicate with each other. Because I'll tell you this, and I tell my staff this all the time, especially my new grads, who this is a new world to them. When someone picks up a phone to any of our places, any of our organizations, and asks for help, because to Trustee Whitaker's point, asking for help takes a lot out of people. So if I picked up that phone and I've asked for help, I don't know how much bandwidth that person has left. That may be the last ounce of energy they have in them. And if I can't help them or get them to someone that can, I don't know what it's gonna look like on the other side. So if someone's on the phone to me and they say, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, and it's not something that Options provides, the answer is never, sorry, go back to Google and find somebody else. I'll always say, and my staff notes say, we don't manage that. However, if you give me a sec, I can get you to Island Harvest, right? I can get you here, I can get you there. At least that soft handoff, so you don't hang up on the person. They're like, well, fine, that was the last ounce of energy I had, I'm done. You never want to leave someone feeling that way, because it's hard enough to ask for help. So
You're right.
Absolutely.
Can I just say this real quick? Just to Yolanda's point, it's amazing because, I need help. It's so hard, and you can't judge a book by its cover. So if they come to the pantry and they're all dressed up and all made up, that sometimes they do that so that what they're going through, it makes them feel better. And on a real personal note, I will say to you, I love you. I'll say to you, I'm sorry 100 times, but it's so hard for me, and I have food and I have a place to stay. It's so hard for me to say I need help. So if it's hard for me to say it and I have $5, can you imagine someone who does not have to say it? So, and they meet someone who's looking at them like, oh, No. And so when it comes to that, the collaboration and just being kind, because just by the grace of God, it's not you or I.
Absolutely. And so before we go into our last question, I do want to trigger our audience. Thank you for joining us today. But if you have any questions, please drop the questions in the chat. Our producer will pull those questions. But before we wrap up, the last question I want to pose to each panelist is, if we was to reconvene in 1 year, and I feel like we might, right? We're going to reconvene 1 year from today. What measurable progress would you hope to see in Long Island? I'm going to say it again. If we reconvene 1 year from today, what measurable progress would you hope to see in Long Island? I'm going to start with Pilar.
I would like to have like a regional housing portal showing every open affordable housing lottery and voucher waiting list. Because we are so segregated that even with these opportunities for affordable housing open up, nobody knows. And the time frame to apply for affordable housing, or sometimes for a housing choice voucher, if the lottery time opens, sometimes it can just be a week or 2 weeks. I would like to see a higher voucher utilization and more legal apartments where families can use their assistance. I would like to see more municipalities adopting reasonable pathways for safe and legal accessory dwelling units, meaning apartments, and greater investments in homelessness prevention before families lose their homes. And when I say greater investments, I really mean more like pro bono legal services, because one of my one to go back a little of the prior question, we find more success when we work closely with pro bono legal services, because many of these tenants, unfortunately, the courts on Long Island are more leaning towards landlords than tenants, and that's the reality of Long Island, right? But usually, if a tenant is able to show up in court with a lawyer, it is easier to prevent an eviction, right? And we are really lacking that. We need most of those, more of those services. We really need the courts to start, working with us, to listen to what our recommendations are. And just to give you a quick example, for instance, I don't know if you guys know, but Suffolk County has the highest numbers of foreclosures in the entire state of New York, right?
Wow.
Suffolk County is huge, right? The courts that hears the settlement conferences for foreclosures are all the way in Riverhead, which is the East End. Less than 50% of the homeowners are able to show up to their court appearances because of the distance. We have a serious problem with access to justice, not only for homeowners, but also for tenants. Thank you.
Awesome. Seth, I'll pass it to you, and then Gregory.
Yeah, similar to what Pilar said, technology is rather significant now, and there are a lot of things that we can do. So a whether it's a portal, whether it's some central point in terms of where the housing inventory is listed, so people can see access. And to your point, the deadline doesn't just come and go, and it doesn't happen like in a week. And it would be wonderful if we could, really have something like that, that's broad based. I mean, I know it does exist in terms of, individually, but across the entire island. And the other thing certainly is a new approach in terms of inventory, because the reality is what's happening is Long Island is NASA is going to turn into up here and down here. You're going to lose a middle class, which means you lose a tax base. So there's got to be an understanding of how things can be taken care of. So I think there's got to be a holistic approach of how affordable housing is going to be, and that coupled with obviously food insecurity. But it's really got to be looked at a broader level, and not just, we're getting it done, but it really has to be, to Yolanda's point, that she can reach out, and she has a network, which is absolutely fantastic. That network needs to be available to everybody.
Awesome. Gregory. Then
Yeah,
Yolanda.
I'd like to see additional investment in the Hunger Prevention Nutrition Assistance Program in Nourish New York. I'm going to take the opportunity. I want to thank Governor Hochul and our legislators who have been incredible champions for people living with food insecurity. But more is needed. We do need more resources on Long Island, and we're going to be advocating for additional funding next year during the next legislative session. And I hope we can report out positively when we reconvene.
Thank you, Yolanda, and then Trustee Whitaker.
So I can echo what all my peers here have said. I would say, just in addition to that, some greater support. We've had great support in the last few years, but some greater support from our representatives, our local representatives, when they go up to Albany. Remember that the programs need services, but also our staff need a living wage. We want to keep people on Long Island, and we want to be able to afford for them to work in our types of organizations so we can create sustainability on Long Island and keep people working for organizations like ours. And also if that we could do a community education piece. I think that, I keep saying it's 2026, but it's so funny because I've been in this field so long, and while I've seen great strides, they're not nearly enough. So some sort of community education piece so that when people say something or make a comment or have a thought, they have the education behind it to say, you know what, that can be me. In literally the blink of an eye, I could be sitting on the other side of that desk. I would like to participate in something like that so we can educate the next generation also.
Right. I would like to see, I'm sorry, I would like to see more effective collaboration with, like in joint planning, with these people, that they hear us, that they listen to us, and perhaps, even if it's not, an astronomical amount of money, but if they could like provide like funding, even if it's just small startership money, just to help people. And I want to see fewer to no people homeless, period.
Awesome. Thank you all for your final thoughts. We do have a question from somebody watching. The question says, and this does everybody doesn't have to answer, whoever feels most qualified to answer. It says, I have a very small site in Nassau/Hempstead that's closing within a month and been working with LICOC and address the homeless. Are there other agencies I can reach out to for help?
Sure, they could actually reach out to me. I'm not
Okay.
sure what kind of site we're talking about, or if you live in the site or you're running the site, but absolutely, give me a ring.
Got you. So we will share that contact with our viewer. So we'll share your contact with them. I don't believe we have any other questions. I want to thank each and every one of you today for your excellent feedback, for your humor. This was a very rich and great conversation. And even though it was a question saying if we reconvene, I think that we should prepare to reconvene in a year from now as we continue to grow and maneuver in this field. At this time, I want to invite a representative from the New York State Assembly member, Rebecca Cassay's office, Sal, who was with us earlier, to give us some final remarks on behalf of the Assemblywoman.
Thank you so much. So my name is Seth.
Are we there? Are we still here? Are we still here? Can anybody hear anyone?
We can hear you.
Oh, I didn't hear anyone say.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
But I didn't hear the gentleman. Okay. Oh. We don't hear you, Dr. X. Oh, I don't.
Yeah.
I just heard you, Seth.
Yeah, mine's on.
Is mine on?
Yeah, I can hear.
Dr.
hear you,
X?
William.
Okay.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to bring Jerry back. Our podcast producer just came on and said that Sal's mic, there was some issue there. So I think we're going to revert back to Jerry.
Right.
Awesome. Well,
Jerry?
thank you all. I know Dr. X was giving an opportunity for Assemblymember Cassay to speak. While that audio is being taken care of, what I want to do is I want to extend a thank you. I'm going to share my screen because there are a couple of amazing events that's going to be coming up across the different organizations. And so I'm going to briefly share my screen.
Jerry, I have a little statement from Mayor Hobbs, if you let me read it.
Oh, absolutely. So right after I give these acknowledgments for a couple of events, first, thank you for everyone who was on the panel. We can't thank you enough for everyone who attended the panel. This is also for our viewers, a couple of events that we want to extend. The first event is from Options. So Options, they're going to be having a murder mystery event October 2nd at the Bayview House at Bayshore. There's going to be prizes, raffles, theme. The theme attire is going to be suggested. Please reach out to Options for Community Living for their event. Please also, if you've enjoyed this current panel so far, we have a podcast, Housing Solutions in New York has a podcast, One Step Away, which we do a deeper dive into not just homelessness, but even the broader conversation of not the complexities, hunger, living wages, and expertise and practice on what's happening on the ground. And then last but not least, I just really want to take the opportunity to circle around and say thank you again, not only to all of our viewers, but really to the organizations that took foot here and stepped up. So right before we go to our last slide, where we want you all to save the date, I need everyone to earmark October 22nd, save the date. We're going to give it right back to Trustee Whitaker, who has some remarks from Mayor Hobbs from the village of Hempstead. And then if Nick is available to speak for Legislator Nuñez. So Trustee Whitaker.
Statement from Mayor Waylon Hobbs. He said, homelessness isn't just an urban issue. As the mayor of the largest village in the state of New York, we too are seeing our communities work harder each and every day to address it. Therefore, discussions like this are crucial, not only for discussing the issue, but also developing a holistic approach to solutions that will have lasting impact. Statement from Mayor Waylon Hobbs, Incorporated Village of Hempstead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trustee Whitaker. And Nick, if you could just introduce yourself, and I know you'll be saying a statement from Legislator Nuñez.
Yeah, so my name is Nicholas Felt. I'm Legislator Cynthia Nuñez, the Chief of Staff. The legislator does apologize for not being able to be here today, but she does have a written statement prepared, which I will read now. It's good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Housing Solutions of New York for the opportunity to participate in today's important conversation on homelessness and hunger across Long Island. While I am unable to join you in person, I am grateful to be represented as leaders from government, nonprofit organizations, and community partners come together to address these critical issues. As Nassau County Legislator for District 14, I remain committed to supporting efforts that promote housing stability, dignity, and opportunity for all. Thank you for all the work that you all do every day, and I wish you a productive and impactful discussion.
Thank you so much for that, Nick. We want to give one more shot to Sal. Sal, I want to see if your audio is all right to give your statement for Assemblymember Casse. You can take Sal off. What we do have is Assemblymember Casse's statement, and so I'm going to do my best Sal impersonation, and the statement reads as such. The Assemblywoman represents the New York State 4th Assembly District, which serves about 130,000 residents in communities throughout northern and central Brookhaven. The Assemblywoman is disappointed that she could not be with you today, but she is grateful for Housing Solutions of New York for holding this important conversation, bringing together leaders across Long Island who work every day to address homelessness, hunger, and housing instability. I do want to say thank you to our fellow panelists and this organization represented here today for doing incredible work, often meeting people in the most difficult points in their lives. Your commitment to serving our communities deserves recognition, and our office is a proud partner with many of the organizations and providers working throughout the district. Homelessness and its causes is something that our office cares deeply about and works locally at the state to prevent. It is intertwined with affordability, healthcare access, mental health services, employment opportunities, and food insecurity. Every single person's situation is unique, which is why the solutions must be comprehensive. Our office believes government has an important role to play between legislation and funding. but also by bringing people together and supporting organizations that are already doing work on the ground. This year's state budget includes investment in affordable housing, homelessness prevention, that understanding that often keeping people housed is much more effective than responding when one crisis occurs. Assemblywoman Cassay voted in favor of last year's state budget, which included up to 18.8 million to support community-based organizations working to preserve affordable housing, along with up to the 74.2 million for state supportive housing and homelessness programs serving New Yorkers experiencing or at risk of homelessness. The budget also created new incentives to encourage the rehabilitation and long-term preservation of affordable housing, recognizing that maintaining existing housing is an essential part of addressing our state's housing challenges. Here today to listen and learn from all of you, we know that people closest to the challenges have a clear understanding of what is working, what is not. And so Assemblymember Cassay really looks forward to today's conversations that has been had, as well as taking these ideas back and to continue to do the work together to build a stronger and healthier community for Long Island. And with those closing remarks, we say thank you to all. One last thing that we want to make sure that is pinned for everyone here. Again, I told you, save the date. We're going to have an amazing gala, Ending Homelessness Together. So save the date, October 22nd, 2026. It's a Thursday. Enjoy yourselves. For more information, take out your phone right now, scan the QR code, take this moment to, one, get more information about Housing Solutions of New York, two, save the date, and then lastly, we'll look forward to seeing you in further spaces. Thank you all for your time and your attention.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting everyone.
Thank you all very much.